Uh, usually I'll do some form of high energy intro, so please don't get too scared. Don't
Hey, that's
run
absolutely
away
fine.
crying from a Zoom call. This is it's the spinny chair moment.
This is
Hello and welcome to me and someone else talking about Docky Woo Series 2. We have a guest. Someone's willing to come on this rubbish channel. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Matthew on YouTube as MC Films. I do various YouTube edits. Did start a Doctor Who fan film about 10 years ago, but money. So here we are.
Lovely stuff. This is the moment that I let you know I will invest if there's a role in it for me. Only joking.
That's fine.
I don't have the money for that. Um,
Who does?
First of all, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm still on a bit of the come down from seeing the season finale in the cinemas, obviously, but generally doing really well. Really well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Same as you. I mean, I was quite annoyed because I had it booked for the cinemas and then ended up away on a work trip. So I was just in in a small Greek island, just casually watching it on Disney Plus. How are you feeling after we've had a bit of distance from it? What are your overall comeaways from it?
Well, I think the series as a whole was definitely stronger than last season. I think seeing a further development of Shooty's Doctor was genuinely interesting to watch. Always working out how they're going to take it in a new direction, especially when you've got a new companion, is always a bit difficult. You can run into the danger of sort of repeating the same tropes, having to introduce it again. I think, well, Russell T Davies every season, even from his first era, has had a new companion every time. So it's definitely, for lack of a better term, sort of treading the boards again with the reintroductions. But I think it felt a bit more natural this time. I think season one we had the introduction not only to Ruby but back on Disney Plus, so it was all I'm the Doctor, last of the Time Lords. This is the TARDIS. It's a so it all felt very sort of, for lack of a better term, sort of tick the boxes.
Yeah.
I think this season felt a lot more organic. It's genuinely had some of my favorite episodes of the 2020s in, but
Mm.
it's also had missed opportunities. Definitely, I remember, whether it's an age thing, becoming a lot more aware of what the show's doing. I was sat in cinemas going, Mr. Trick here. Oh, that would have been so much more effective done this way. But I think on the whole, I think season two was a marked improvement on season one. Um, I guess we'll go into it more the further on that we discuss it.
100%. I mean, I think the vibes I'm getting is I think we have a lot of similar feelings. I mean, the most topical things going on now. I mean, we'll quickly touch on it because I think it's been so overblown
Yeah.
recently. What are your thoughts about the future, Billie Piper, etc.?
So, well, coming out of it, I must say, seeing the finale in cinemas, I've been very lucky. I was able to see the 50th anniversary at a convention, at the convention in London.
Wow.
I saw Deep Breath in cinemas. I saw last year's finale in cinemas. So the way I described it in one of my comments on Twitter was, it wasn't the best episode, but a fantastic experience.
Mm.
Um, Actually, just being able to see it in cinemas. I was never into the Marvel sort of thing, so having a cinema experience that's not a comedy where you're allowed to audibly react was definitely interesting. So of course, seeing that ending shot, was to be able to express it vocally, was an experience. I think at first watch, the more I kind of sat on it, it was like, this screams sort of, as everyone's been saying on Twitter, it screams of sort of generating content, that kind of
Yeah.
clicky reaction. What's going on? to get buzz around the show. I think depending what they do with it, it could be very, very interesting. It does scream sort of going back to the old days again, and
Mm.
I think that potentially does a disservice to Shooty in retrospective. But I mean, you could go one of two ways. It could be she is an incarnation of the Doctor, or it could be she isn't. And until we see it fully materialized, it's always going to be reactionary opinions, to be honest. What about yourself?
Oh, 100% when talking about the reactionary opinions. We don't know any context. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think she is the Doctor, and I think she'll do a full season. I remember there was a comment in the 60th when that was being made where Russell was very openly said they would make however many episodes David and Catherine were willing to film. And I think, Billie Piper is a fantastic actress. I think she's about to do Wednesday series 2. So let's not pretend, she's not a busy actress. But I think if she's willing to do a series, maybe even a full tenure, I think she will. I think in terms of her casting, certainly my overriding sense, even now, is a sadness over Shooty's exit. I'm not quite ready to especially there's not much information to latch on to, as we've alluded to. I'm still mourning the loss of Shooty and what that means and what we could have gotten, and as we'll discuss some of the threads of the last couple of series that either won't be revisited, or if they are revisited, won't mean as much because Shooty isn't there anymore.
Definitely. I saw that there was one comment, and she well, it was quoted as Billie saying, if it was 4 episodes set in London, she would be on it like
Mm.
a rat up a drain pipe sort of thing. I think it'd be interesting to see how they format the series going forward. I think it's always we're never going to be in the prime 14 episodes a year every year because it's just not how television works anymore. And when you look at streaming as a whole, with it being, or it was co-partnered with Disney, it was never going to be, the American 26 half an hour episodes. It was always going to be a 6, an 8 episode. I mean, we'll see. I'll be excited if it's more reminiscent of Flux. I think that did, in hindsight, that did so well for sort of bringing the whole series together. I mean, they impossibly shot it with no COVID cases at all. And I was there for some of the filming in Liverpool, and just obviously television takes so long to make nowadays, but we're talking 2 hours for one take of a shot during COVID. Moving forward, I think if they can keep Billie on board, the more that she does, I think the less it'll scream, we need a plan now.
Mm.
It will scream like they have a plan, they know what they're doing. I think depending how much she signs on will be how much they can get away with it, so to speak.
I definitely think you're right in terms of I think a serialized story might be the way to go. I think personally the reaction to Empire of Death, I think it really proved that no matter what people's reactions and comeaways, I think it was proved with Empire of Death in the first series. I think it was proved with the Reality War. If the finale doesn't land, people forget. So you might as well take a bit more of a classic format. Well, in my opinion, take a Flux format, but with a more interesting story, and do that a lot better. I think that definitely could be the future and could be an interesting way for Series 3 to go if that's the way Russell wants to go with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's always going to be a tell. I mean, it's not just happened in Doctor Who. You look at Lost when that premiered. That was one of the best American series ever made until the finale, and then it was one of the worst products ever put on television. Personally, I've just gone through The Walking Dead and found season 11 to be such a difficult season to get through
Mm.
until the last couple of episodes. It's when you've got such a reduced sort of amount of episodes or amount of time that you can do to put content out, that's when your structure needs to be more there. And I think, as we'll go on to discuss, it seems like there's, and I wouldn't even say it's an episode thing, there's just not enough care being put into wrapping these sort of things up like there has been in the previous eras.
100%. Let's spread some positivity because that's what my main goal with my life, no, chat this channel. So because also I do think negative chat, for better or for worse, it's easier to talk. Things get expounded so much with negative chat. So positivity. What was your highlight of this series, episode wise, or something else?
Oh, I mean, without going episode to episode, my favorite episode of the 2020s was Lux. I absolutely, it wasn't the most quotable or wasn't ideally the best looking, but just the vibes that you get from Lux was, it hit something for me. And I went, you know what? Yeah, this is so, so much bigger and so much more personal. Um, I think a lot of the season looked incredible. A lot of the visual effects, whilst they were good in season one, were just nailed in season two. I think a lot more care was put into developing the character of the companion. Um, I think the supporting cast were, there was ways that they could have done it that wouldn't have been as effective,
Mm.
and everyone just nails it. From Lucky Day, the story in the engine, Interstellar. There isn't a lot of episodes, but there is so much to be able to talk about here that is just, it felt fresh, which is so hard to do. I mean, even just taking New Who in 20 years, there is, it shows that you can learn things from the episodes whilst also being entertaining. Take the story in the engine with the cultural importance of having the braids for the
Mm.
maps in people's hair. That's interesting. I never
Loved
knew
that bit.
that, and that was such to know it meant so much to Shooty.
Mm.
You could tell it on screen. It was oozing so much charm throughout the whole season.
100%. I love, yeah, that part of story in the engine, and like what you said. People are looking for new and inventive Who, and I think it was really on display this series. That's one of I think that's been one of Russell's big things is no, apart from maybe like his openers, which are a bit more classic Russell. Like there's just been so much new and inventive different bits. In terms of Lux, we opened on Lux being your favorite. I found that episode to be one of the episodes. Probably, this might sound like an extreme statement. I hope it isn't.
Mm.
That improved the most for me on a rewatch. I think the first time it was fine, but I proper sat there like an arrogant wanker of a fan, going, what do you mean? Doctor Who's a show in Doctor Who the canon. Oh, and then you watch it, and there's just with that and Mr. Ring-a-Ding and
Mm.
a fantastic shooty performance and doing because I haven't always been a fan of the God stuff, but doing what I think is by far the best God story. Maybe I think the Giggle for me has quite a lot of iconic elements, but in terms of pure story, Lux is probably there. Oh, what a great episode.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just, for me, I'm on board with the god stuff. Definitely, I thought it was maybe a bit of a reach having Sutek as the god of death,
Mm.
but I would look past that. In terms of the god stuff, for me, it's definitely the strongest. It's like you say, it's got one of the at the time one of the best shooty performances. Varada Sethu was incredible on
Mm.
board. The supporting cast were there. They weren't underutilized and overutilized. I For this series, I've watched it twice, each episode twice before the
Mm.
next one comes out. First time, I always watch it as soon as I can. Second time, I'll watch it with the subtitles on,
Yeah.
just to kind of pick up anything I've missed. And the scene at the beginning of Lux when they're in the diner and Shooty and Belinda, or the Doctor and Belinda, are talking to the I forget his name, but the mother, and she says, "Is help on the way because they sent a policeman." Beautiful scene. That moment was
It's
beautifully acted and amazingly done. I think Mr. Ring-a-Ding ate stuck in everyone's head for a long time. Let's be honest. Um,
iconic.
so then they had to bring Dugadoo into it in the Eurovision Song Contest. But yeah, in terms of just pure vibes, I mean, I was nervous at first when they said, "Oh, Doctor Who fans are coming," because I tried to avoid the leaks.
Yeah.
I just there's no point in ruining and sharing every detail about the program because you'll watch it and be annoyed that it happened. But I think they handled it really well. It could have been very, very cringy,
Mm.
but I think it had a lot of heart behind it. Even the sort of self-deprecation of the Doctor Who fans, people know we're annoying, and we've seen it online because it's been leaked. Perhaps they could have done more with it when you start to think about the finale. But in terms of that standout and that standalone episode, I mean, Lux for me was incredible.
Mm.
Just I can't describe it. When you get a vibe of an episode, it just works.
100%. I think, in terms of that, like Doctor Who fan scene, I think they put it on for the perfect length. It's not like a quick flash because then people will be desperate for more of it. It doesn't
Mm.
overstay its welcome too much. It hits the funny beats. It hits some nice heartfelt beats at the end, and yeah, that scene. I think my only Lux problem, as I find with a lot of Russell's stuff in general, going back to RTD1, the resolution itself is a little bit, you know, bit of light. He pisses off, but if I have to nitpick, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I think I can understand where you come from. For me, I see it as sort of, all these gods generally want one thing, and Lux being the god of light, he gets what he wants, and yes, in a simplistic way, he buggers off. It just felt like it was moving towards. I never saw Lux as a villain, but he was threatening, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
So the way it was resolved, it didn't need a. And now the Doctor waves his screwdriver and everybody blows up. It worked well as just having. He's given it what it wants. A bit like Jodie and the Lone Cyberman.
Mm.
The villain won in a sense. He got what he wanted, and it worked. It worked.
100%. I'm gonna give a shout out to my favorite episode of the season because I personally can't gush about the well enough.
Oh,
I that noise describes the well perfectly. I just and I am not even a big horror fan. I know some people want to Doctor Who to lean more into horror. I quite like the one or two more horror-based episodes a year, and then we move past it. But my God, the slow burn into the reveal, into the absolute chaos, into that amazing, twisted, glorious ending.
mm,
And also it is helped by the fact that one of the was it 13? Yeah, one of the 13, one of
yeah,
the extras was a friend who I know. So seeing him
nice.
as a big fan fulfill his Doctor Who dream, that episode for me might be my favorite of, I wouldn't
Mm.
want to give an exact time frame, but that episode, Chef's Kiss, is glorious.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give hats off to the well. It was, it opened quickly. It slowed down, but it was never slow.
Mm,
It constantly ticked over, and it had that. It was very reminiscent. Even the score, the first sort of 20 minutes was very Segun. It
mm,
was very sort of slow tones, droning going on in the background. It, I personally do not handle horror very well. I'm
mm,
not a big fan of it. It doesn't do an awful lot, but you could cut the tension with a knife whenever I watch that every time, and it helps having new blood on board. From what we know, Russell co-wrote it.
mm,
Perhaps just added the midnight references and the elements, and sort of worked on characterizing the Doctor and Belinda.
mm.
But in terms of the pure just tension of the matter. I mean, it was very reminiscent of Boom. You could tell that Stephen Moffat had come off a theatre thing, because you can imagine walking into a theatre set and having one disc and one prop, and that's it. That's your stage for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and you could set the well in a theatre, and
Mm,
it worked. You were never going, "I want to see more of this."
mm.
You were going, "I want to go back to that room. I want to see what's going on."
Yes. Would you be up? This is the big question. Would you be up for a Midnight the Well part three? Because I am so not sure. Because I'm not convinced it could work, but
I'm
I
the
want to
same.
see if it was good.
I think when it was first sort of teased or leaked, maybe that it was going to be a midnight sequel, I think you've always got the bit in the back of your head going, they're going to give too much away, and the well perfectly gave just a bit more,
Mm,
but we still haven't seen the creature at all. We still don't know fully what it can do. I think the danger is writing it with that in mind, of it being a third part of an unconnected trilogy. You can go a bit too far,
yeah.
and you can show a bit too much. I personally think they shouldn't, or if not, they should have someone else do it.
Mm, I certainly think the easier and better option. The only reason I would want to see it, and obviously, it's quite hard to measure this as a writer. I would only want to see it if they knew they could do something on the Midnight the Well level. You don't want to see it for the sake of it. Where we leave it is perfect. I do, because obviously you mentioned in terms of the whole seeing the monster thing. This, because I obviously I'm quite chronically online, to my detriment. One of the things I saw about this episode that people are criticizing it for really grinded my gears. So I do want to get someone else's take on this.
Hmm.
Obviously, we do see more of the monster than Midnight, but what really got me was people taking screenshots of a visual medium and then going, "Oh, they've shown too much. We know what it looks like." Whereas if you just watch the episode in real time as it was designed for, you no no no. I haven't got 20/20 vision, but I think anyone with perfect vision can't see it properly. So,
Yeah,
what's your take on that? If you don't have one, that's fine. But
I think looking at the show as a whole, a lot of people will take screenshots of certain moments and go, "Look at how dodgy this looks. Oh my god, this is how bad it is." I mean, just an example in this series that instantly comes to mind is from Wish World. Whether or not when Rogue is on the television and people go,
yes.
"Oh my god, look at how dodgy this looks. She can, oh, it's really bad." It doesn't look too bad. I was nervous about seeing it in the cinemas, but then when you look at it, you go, "It's
Mm.
fine." In movement, it's fine. The little clip that we saw of I can't remember whether in the trailer. I think it was the trailer for Wish World when we saw the Rani on the Flash Gordon bike. I thought, "Huh, that looks a little bit ropey," but it's
Yeah.
Doctor Who. What do you expect? I mean, if people actually look more into what the Disney deal actually was, it was distribution. Disney were
Mm.
putting, they were co-funding it, in the sense of the BBC was still putting up a large amount of money. It
100%.
wasn't. It was never going to be a case of Disney are going to give us £200 million for an 8 episode season and it's going to look fabulous. It's Doctor Who. What do you expect?
It's the things you come to Doctor Who for. Like, we know it's not going to have the biggest budget. If you want that, there's Avatar films to go watch. If you like Doctor Who, you don't watch it to expect. I think it's part of the charm. It's like we mentioned with like the Rogue scene. Not gonna lie, I'm not saying it's like the worst thing ever. I do think the CGI looks a bit shit, but you watch that scene. And as a fan of Rogue and that character and that relationship, what that represents, you ignore the mildly shite CGI and you enjoy. And that was honestly one of the parts in Wish World where I was most awake, because as we might get onto, that episode was dull as shit. I want to keep shouting out the positive ones because they, especially in the midst of negativity, they deserve all the praise. For me, another one that really deserves some praise is Lucky Day. Now what were your thoughts there? Because some people, the big takeaway has really been how do you pronounce it? Pete McTake take
Pete,
time?
Pete Matai?
Pete McTiger, love him. Can that man write politics? Because I agree, whilst initially loving the first watch of it, Kablam has some dodgy messages. I was much more positive on the Lucky Day messaging because I think it's quite nuanced and people can just take it the wrong way if they want to. Where are your thoughts regarding that and the episode as a whole?
So I think in the back of my mind going into it, I was conscious we were following the pattern of season one. It was, your introductory episode, as Russell does, your episode sort of set in the past. We've now got an episode that is pretty high stakes, low location, and then we've got a Dr. Light. So taking that out, I thought Millie Gibson was incredible. The Pete Matai really got performances out of his actors, and you can see that even. I mean, they say never work with children or animals, but that opening scene with the little comrade, he sold it. He sold
Very
it.
good.
I think you're always running a risk when you do something so on the nose political that people are, especially if it's not the main basis of, say, the show. I think it'll work a lot better in the war between the land and the sea. It can be as political as you like.
Yeah.
I think in Lucky Day, it was a bit sort of, for me, I felt it very sort of, isn't the world crap? Isn't everything really bad? And the people that you trust, no, you can't trust anyone. You're on your own. Shirley Bingham's a benefit fraud. But I think it worked because of the performances. I think it did really well. I think it was a shock going from the well into something so politically charged. Not to say it was a bad thing, obviously. For me, it's how best to word it. I can respect why other people like it. It's not my favorite. I'm not going to say it's a bad episode, and I'm not going to hate people for liking it. I just prefer seeing other things. But again, I can see when it's good, it's really good. The Shriek CG, incredible. The design of it itself, really creepy. Seeing Kate get pushed without the Doctor, fantastic. I want to see more of that. I think it was in the giggle when she was like, "We're waiting for you to be able to do something that I would have done anyway." And the Doctor's like, "You can do it," and she's like, "Oh, thanks." It's like, no, we want to see her. She should have been saying, "I am going to do this," and the Doctor's saying, "Hold on a minute." And to see Kate actually go too far, I think it's not far enough.
I hope, yeah, I think that is, you know, up there as one of the best Kate appearances. I think a reason why I really like the episode, even though because I'd seen a couple of set photos, I was pretty sure there was going to be a Conrad twist. The Conrad twist just worked so well for me that first time, and I think there's probably other episodes. I think it's about politics when it resonates, it really works. And I think the politics of this episode, is very heavy-handed, and certainly in that last 20 minutes, it is unabashedly
Mm.
it's about the politics, which kind of makes me excited for Land Between the War and Sea because not gonna lie, I want a spin-off to do something completely different and have something to say for better or for worse. And I think the message is just so like for me, the idea of, certainly like even, when talking, about politics, our without trying to get too political on Doctor Who podcast, our entire politics feels like it's, built on arseholes presenting misinformation for their own gain. And
Mm.
yeah, I think maybe it stumbles with a solo person being the misinformation going up against corporates, whereas usually in real life it's definitely going to be the other way around. But I do think the episode presents a lot of good ideas.
I think I think the reason I hate Conrad is because it's so true, and
Mm.
that's pretty scary. That we're at a point where this hyper realistic, hyper centralized political message is so true without getting really heavy, on the sort of thing. I think Conrad's Conrad's twist is so well done by the performance, by the music, by the direction that it makes you hate him because he is just like everyone that shouts loud enough, you know. I mean, he's giving podcasters a bad rep,
Any
but
just.
oh no.
I also do want to give Shooty a shout out because I think there's a couple of other candidates, but Shooty's performance at the end of Lucky Day,
Oh,
oh, is certainly top three Shooty scenes. Is
mm.
just oh incredible. Loved it.
For me, I think it's better than the ending of Dot and Bubble.
Mm.
I think having Dot of Bubble's end scene be Shooty's first, I mean, I think they handled it really well. From what we've heard, they asked Shooty if he was okay with this, going into his first scene and it be an episode about race and that sort of thing. I think he did it really well. But for me, the end of this episode with Shooty and it was his best confronting a villain, I would say, easily.
Yeah, it's a very good episode. Are there any? Obviously, we've got to do some finale chat because, of course,
We
we do
do.
Wish World,
Got a
and
lot to talk about.
let's face it, that's going to take up half of this damn podcast. What,
Yes.
are there any other episodes for good or bad reasons? So I think we've got left Robot Revolution, Story in the Engine, and Interstellar Song Contest. What episode do you feel? What episode do you fancy talking about?
Hmm. I mean, oh, let's go with the Interstellar Song Contest because
Let's
that
do
has
it.
a lot of people very on the fence.
Mm.
Very on the fence. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mr. TARDIS, as I'm sure a lot of people are, and to see him be a bit unsure. Hmm. I mean, not saying he is the vocal advocate for Doctor Who opinions, but he's been around a lot. He's spoken a lot. He's got a lot of experience. Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about Kid, let's say? How do you feel that was handled and executed?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, yeah, obviously, lovely quick shout out to Mr. TARDIS. I don't know if you, the man who hates me. We had a lovely little Twitter back and forth. The
Oh, very
man,
nice.
yeah, it's all good, man. The man does make some quite racist thumbnails and then defends them. But
Mm.
moving on from all that fun jazz, the problem is, and some people have said certain things, and some people said not. It's I presume they regret making this episode because there's no point in shying away from it. The Eurovision Song Contest, and therefore the thing that this episode is, that's the thing this episode is parodying at the moment in is so tied to the conflict that's going on in the moment as you watch the episode, as some people might, just like I watched Lucky Day, as we've said, and saw the positive side of it, it's very tough knowing what we know and not looking at the Interstellar Song Contest and thinking that that has some very dodgy politics. The problem being we're not sure exactly. Some people are saying different things, whether it's supposed to have what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to have, what side it's alluding to, if at all. So overall, as an episode, I think I reviewed it and I stand by it as, a, a 7 out of 10 episode that I don't think I think will start to age worse, if not better. I think the Doctor's I so some people have called the Doctor's reaction and not in character, whereas I'm definitely more in the camp of it's in character, but I think some for some people it was earlier. This was the episode where, for me, Belinda started to unravel as a bit as a character, where it felt like her reaction didn't make sense. I thought the Doctor's did. Where that was a lot of waffle from me, so I've thrown a lot of bones there.
Well, I think for me it's a 7 out of 10 with 4 out of 10 execution.
Mm,
I think it's in character for the Doctor to react like that, but maybe not Shooty's Doctor.
mm,
I think with an episode that is so centered around something so political, without delving headfirst into it, you always run the risk of unconsciously d- picking a side, or at least
mm.
promoting one side as bigger or better or more right than the other. I think so. I watched it without any spoilers. Sometimes I would go on Twitter, see an image or clock out, and I sort of made sure that I stayed clear. And I'm glad I did. I think at the point that it came out, the surrounding things with your likes of Susan, with getting closer to May 24th, everything like that was very interesting. I think Ryland and Graham Norton were actually surprisingly well utilized without being, look, we've got Ryland. And Belinda's reaction is very almost out of character, because a normal person wouldn't go, oh my God, they look like Ryland. They go, oh, it's Ryland. Oh, it's Graham Norton.
Yeah.
So I think characterization of everything surrounding the main conflict was good.
Mm.
I think Belinda's reaction to seeing the Doctor and almost having like a panic attack was pretty realistic. It was her being like, "Oh my God, I'm stuck. I don't even know where I am," and she's like, "Where am I?" And they go, "Oh, we're so and so." But where's that? But where's that? She's really starting to freak.
Welcome to part two, folks. I'm not sure if I introduced the fact that this was going to be part one and part two. It's all one video, so that's a random for you.
Hey,
We've got two more episodes, but we're going to bang through them in a quick format because I can read in your minds, audience. You want Wish World Reality War talk because it's recent.
yes.
You've got small attention spans. So, can I have your rating and 10 words to describe the robot revolution in your head?
Oh, 8 out of 10.
Bosh.
Um, trying to get it into 10 words. I'll make it brief. A very 1950s inspired sci-fi romp in space with robots.
Amazing. In 10 words as well. Very impressed. Yeah,
Nice.
pretty much agree. Very fun episode. Bosh.
Yes.
Can I have the same for the amazing story in the engine?
Oh, 9 out of 10. Um, oh, it expands on the past of the show and develops it further forward in a extremely poignant episode for Shooty Gatwa. There, it's amazing.
Completely agree. I'm an asshole. I can't remember the name of the writer. That's really bad of me. But write again for Doctor Who. You were incredible.
Please, yes.
Now, I'm gonna do a pretty similar thing for Wishworld, and we'll end up linking the occasional thing back. But
Mm,
realistically, most of the stuff happens in the reality war. It's what I've alluded to in this podcast. We'll talk about them as a two-parter as well. But
mm.
overall thoughts on Wishworld? Because not gonna lie, I don't think they did the concept justice personally.
Um, it definitely felt like two stories were going on at once.
Mm,
Um, right, I'll preface this by saying The Legend of Ruby Sunday for me was the same level of tension as like Boom and The Well for me.
wow.
I find it incredibly, it takes its time, but for me it's not boring. I like the vibes of going to unit and you're meeting everyone, but we need to sort this out. And now we're going to go to the the time corridor and we're going to spend a long time in here, and it's letting it sit and it's letting it sort of build. Wishworld did that until we saw Ruby and Shirley meet, and then it just sort of became Russell T Davies finale.
Mm,
Yeah, I think the ending of Wishworld worked for me on the same level as last season.
mm,
I cannot watch Legend of Ruby Sunday without getting goosebumps at that whole choral build up of going
100%.
there, and it's just and when that final reveal's on, I get goosebumps every time. Wishworld didn't achieve that,
Mm,
but I always think, and maybe it's a danger with how showrunners perceive the finale, but if every year gets bigger and bigger, you're going to eventually hit the ceiling.
mm.
And it felt like Wishworld hit the ceiling of where they can go before it starts becoming eye rolling.
I think for me, and to be fair, I think I agree with you with the reveal of Legend of Ruby Sunday. I think I'm personally slightly more. I think Legend of Ruby Sunday is better than Wish World, but I think both of them slightly fall into the trap of all they've really got is a build up to the end,
Mm.
and they don't actually do anything much within their stories themselves. And certainly with Wishworld, realistically, if we're doing the whole, like 10-word describey thing from earlier, we're basically going, this is the Wish World. We have a couple of interesting moments, such as the Doctor saying something flirty with, oh, I'm so bad with names, the one that Kate's dating. Um,
Oh, Colonel Ibrahim.
Ibrahim, like there's some
Yeah.
great moments like that, but apart from that, we've got a world, there's an occasional bit of doubt, similar things keep happening, we get to our reveal. We know where this episode's going, and for me, apart from the end, which we always knew there was going to be pretty much a name drop at the end, I don't know. There was never really anything beyond that.
Yeah. I think when you take the episode as a whole and it's perhaps it's symptomatic of finales, I think, and especially when we go on to the reality war, I think when you look at it as a whole, you go, it doesn't do an awful lot. But when you take the sort of if you take everything up until the scene of the Doctor and the Rani doing the waltz, there is some interesting stuff there.
Hmm.
I think the premise of having a world layered with doubt and watching them sort of navigate the way through, whilst it's not particularly groundbreaking stuff, is executed well.
Hmm.
I think whenever they're expressing doubt and the characters' reactions of it is really well done. I think the scene that it's most effective is when Belinda's with her parents
Yeah.
and how long were you in labour? I
Hmm.
think that scene was. I think Varada acts her socks off in that scene, as does when she makes the phone call for when the doctor's expressing doubt. It was nice to see Anita Dobson be able to have some material to work with. It
Yeah.
was, I think, symptomatic from last week's when we immediately had, I'm not just a Rani, I'm the Rani. Immediately got one became comic relief. So
Mm,
it was nice to see her kind of be that vindictive sort of manipulative figure on her own right.
mm.
Um,
That's the Rani I'd love to see come back. If
mm,
if Anita Dobson wants to come back, I always thought I thought Anj Punjabi did a fantastic
oh,
job,
yeah,
and I
definitely.
really loved her. But if Anita Dobson is gonna come back as is kind of hard, obviously she escaped, so she certainly can come back.
Mm,
I want to see them go in much more in the direction of she's the one we see at the end of Empire of Death, that her in that scene in Wishworld, that
yeah.
manipulative Rani, and less of the, because the comedy stuff was chuckle worthy but obvious, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think definitely in Wish World it was. I think Reality War was funnier.
Definitely.
Again, whether or not because I went from watching it on my own to watching it in a cinema, maybe the atmosphere played a bit of
Mm,
part in. And it'd be interesting, obviously, to get your perspective because you watched it, albeit not at home, but
mm,
outside of that sort of thing. I think the scene where she dons the police outfit and she's going in and she's very RP uptight, speaking with Belinda, was good. And I do feel like the last sort of 10 minutes when they get to the threshold to the end of the episode was becoming more like Legend of Ruby Sunday for me. A lot more. It was tense because you're in
mm.
one setting and we're just slowly adding more.
Yeah.
And that seemed to work for me up until the reveal of who was in the Underverse.
Yeah, it's that seems like a great, let's explode this into reality war chat. You've given me a great segue. Just as I thought Sutek was very mishandled, and I don't think that's an unpopular opinion.
Mm,
I thought Omega was that should not have been. I don't want to sound like a law wanker because they are insufferable. Well, can be
yes.
insufferable, but to have Omega, like three doctors, I think is brilliant. I think Omega is just such an iconic character, and I'll try my best to defend Russell because I love a lot of his stuff, but to turn two in 2 seasons, two of these iconic characters into big CGI monsters, this one being even more offensive, even where we get down to the point of this version of Omega is defeated by a gun, basically a Vindicator being used as a gun. And I've seen this point raised where Russell's whole reason for changing the look of the sonic screwdriver is because he
Yeah.
didn't want it to look like a gun, yet the entire resolution is a Vindicator being shot like a gun. Anything
And
Omega related was crap.
Unit as well, having guns in Lucky Day, Conrad having guns in that. So is the Doctor a villain in Russell's eyes? I mean, look, I'm not going to go too deep into. I think it was perhaps a misjudged comment that he made in regards to the Sonic.
Mm,
Um, I, w- I would have. I think it was a lot more effective in Reality War up until we saw Omega. The minute I saw the claw, I was like, oh no.
mm,
Like, but again, the justification of he was in the Underverse, he became his own legend, he became his own god, was fine. I took that. It, I am hoping to make a video on it at some point, but I think having seeing Omega was a bad mistake. I think the threat of Omega was so much bigger than what you can deliver.
mm. 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the episode as a whole. Because I'm not saying there aren't some good elements after this. I think quality wise, the episode takes a massive downturn once we see Omega. Because honestly, and again, because people don't like some of the reveals and people revise their thoughts because of the last 10 minutes. I thought that opening, I can't remember exactly how much it is, 30, 40 minutes, right up until the Omega resolution, I was loving it. I genuinely
Mm.
thought, and there are some controversial bits in the second half of the episode. That first half with a unit team that, again, some people find have weird elements that they don't like of that. I really love a lot of those group of characters and them together, and the epic music and Shooty on the space pedalo, and
Oh,
it just and the team coming together. And what I'm obviously, what are your thoughts on bit of a segue? What are your thoughts on the unit team? Because people seem to not enjoy that element of RTD2. Me, I'm all for it. I think most of those
oh,
characters
yeah.
are fine, at least passable, and some of them are just great characters and great actors.
Yeah, 100%. I am all for it. I think Shooty, whenever he's interacting with them, really makes it so warm, and you can tell the chemistry they have off screen,
Hmm.
on screen. I'd say more than any other Doctor friend companion dynamic. You can
Hmm.
really tell that these people love spending time with each other. How it translates on screen, yeah, maybe some characters could do a bit more. Maybe it is a bit overstuffed, a bit like some of the episodes in the Chibnall era could be. But I'm, I'm I can't lie and say that when I see them rock up, I'm down for it.
Hmm. a hundred
Yeah, I'm the
percent.
same as you.
I think, Mel being there is fantastic. I think Ruth Madley brings an amazing performance. I think Kate and Ibrahim are always lovely and fun. And you the one I don't get, I've never I don't love the character. I just think he's, just a nice, or they, or is an interesting way to flush out the team. But can you explain? I don't actually get this. What do people have against the Blinks? I don't get it.
Oh, I don't get it. I mean, the Lynx doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
100%.
I did find it quite funny when people were saying, everything's going down, and the Lynx is like, I'm out of here. See you later.
Yeah.
I'm not getting involved. Um, yeah, I mean, it could have run into the danger of almost being an exposition dump with the Lynx just saying, oh, this is the creature, this is what they do. Oh, we know how to defeat them now. Let's go and do that. But yeah, I don't know. I think honestly, I think they wrote the part in for Nick Briggs
Hmm. And
because we're
Nick
not
Briggs
bringing the
does a part.
Daleks back. So
That, yeah.
have Nick Briggs say some words, and we're all hunky dory.
Um, I also, just as a quick note, 'cause it's slightly linked to Wishworld. Not only did I love the return of Rose, but I think, that, little elements like that where you start talking about characters that, in Conrad's world just aren't there at
Mm.
all. But then, we still managed to get some lovely scenes with her. I think, yeah, that's brilliant.
Again, the justification's there. Rose doesn't do anything, and I know a lot of people keep saying that. I mean, I'm not going to be one and say, "Oh, she stood there on an iPad and then she died." Like that was the whole point of the Last Defense,
Mm.
was that shock of the death. So they're never going to really play a big part in Empire of Death. But in this one, yeah, I think she comes in, asks a question, we don't see her. It's like I can. I think it would have worked just as well if someone said, "Where's Rose?" and the
Mm.
Doctor says pretty much the exact same line. He didn't believe she existed. I'm sure she's safe, or I've got a feeling my other self's looking after her, or something like that.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
I
with
know what you mean. She doesn't do anything, but
yeah,
for me, it's nice to see her.
yeah. I was just about to say, to see her come on screen and okay, yes, it wasn't a groundbreaking performance, but just to have them back together in retrospective is a nice book ending to the end of the episode. I mean, I want to say, I feel as though the finale resolution was pretty good.
Hmm.
The cliffhanger resolution did not feel copped out
Yeah.
one bit. I think it was like, oh, and we had in the cinema that I saw it in, at least, audible, oh,
Hmm.
when she rocked up, and it just didn't feel cheap. It felt nice, is how you can describe RDR2, RDT2. It's nice.
Yeah,
You go, cool.
100%. And like, to be fair, all of that stuff with like Anita as well. It's just the little scenes, and that was a that yeah, not a cop out. Great resolution. Great, a character that people already liked, and
Hmm.
well. I know some people have complained that she was just there to open doors, but I thought she got her moment at the start, saving Shooty. What more do you want her to do?
Well, exactly, and I think seeing her from how we saw her as sort of general lady to now being like, no, I know what's going on with TARDISes and time corridors and the Rani. I know what I'm doing.
Mm,
It was nice to see her. Another funny bit was well, another bit that gained a reaction in the cinema, I should say, was the line from Archie Punjabi's Rani to Anita Dobson about asking about following them round everywhere, and she said, "Oh, I had Christmas off." That was really funny.
that was
That got a
great.
good reaction. It's like little bits of gold like that really hit.
Right. Here's controversial bit number one.
Yes.
How do you this because this is quite apt in a whole series review. How do you feel about the arc of Belinda? Because I feel like I feel differently about this all the time. Like there are so many ways of reading it, and each of them make me feel different to the point where I don't know how to feel.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not going to talk in regards to other people saying her character was strong and independent and now she is mother. Like I'm not reading into it in that respect. I think more could have been done to maybe plant the seed, you know, maybe give a few contradicting stories as to why she needs to go back home to sort of plant the idea of reality being a bit wavy.
Hmm.
I'm sure in the Robot Revolution, if I remember correctly, she was going home for work.
Yeah, because obviously,
She was due home from work,
mm,
and then to get reshot scenes that we didn't see that recontextualize that didn't feel earned.
mm,
I know someone on Twitter did videos on putting those scenes back into the episodes and how it would have worked. And I think dotting a few of them in, where she's like, "Oh, I met this guy, and we had a night, and that was it, and I've not seen him since." And then a couple of episodes later, maybe being like, "Oh, you know, maybe just mentioning someone called Poppy.
mm.
Oh, I should bring Poppy to see this. She'd love it." And then it's sort of that world building outside, and then when you see her in the story in the engine, it sort of maybe pieces together. But for me, I feel like it didn't feel earned to be able to do that rug pull because we had no prior context until the latter half of this final episode. Oh no, her daughter is real. She is a mum.
Mm. I think
Personally,
because there's obviously there are as you mentioned a lot of ways that it can be read. I I think it would have gone down a lot better. Not necessarily that this was like a bad 5 minutes, but if Poppy just wasn't there when we reopen the door, because I
I
feel.
thought they were going to do that when Belinda
Mm,
was on her own, and I thought she was going to be like, "What do you mean, Poppy? Where's like I'm in
because
here on my own?"
I think that works better to go from Belinda's relationship with Poppy, and we see her desperate to have and keep Poppy, to then, her having Poppy and then like the slow forgetting and everyone forgetting. I feel like if everyone, apart from Belinda, who's inside the thing, if everyone is outraged and upset for Belinda, then it justifies the Doctor's choice a bit more. I'm obviously, so you can read into it however you want, and that probably doesn't change too much. I think the difference between just Ruby in a very well acted, well, two series for Millie Gibson. I think she's been incredible
Oh
all
yeah,
all throughout. But instead of just, I feel like the Doctor remembering immediately and all the other cast remembering just not Belinda remembering. I think that would have been the more interesting way to go. But again,
yeah,
as we kind of got to preface from here on out when talking about the second half, we don't know exactly the timeline. All we know was that there were reshoots. Maybe the plan was always to go. Maybe it's been a plan for the last 2 or 3 months. I don't want to speculate on stuff I just
no,
don't know about, but it's worth prefacing that there were reshoots a few months ago, and things things likely were dramatically changed, probably in the way Russell didn't originally want them to be changed.
yeah, and I think taking it out on Russell, as in, I mean, there are potentially two ways you can look at it. If you're believing Shooty and Russell, then the episode isn't executed well.
Mm,
But if you're believing the understanding that season three was meant to be with Shooty and how it looked like it was going to be with Shooty and Varada and Millie, and then everything had to get rechanged, redone, re-swapped around. So the episode was clearly, they couldn't really do much more.
mm,
I think we don't know the context of obviously what he was writing in the reshoots. Rumor has it he didn't want to carry it over to another Doctor.
mm,
But I then think, well, why didn't we have Poppy forget? Or I think, I mean, that beautiful scene in the TARDIS where they're passing Poppy's coat from one to
mm.
each other, and it's getting smaller and smaller until it's gone.
Yeah.
I think at that point, whilst Ruby still remembered, I think the wink that Shooty does to Millie, or that the Doctor does to Ruby, should have been the last bit of like, he still knows, but now Ruby's forgotten and everyone's forgotten, but he still knows, and we know that through the wink. And I think that would have hit
Mm,
so much harder as it almost come in full circle and it
mm.
being closed off.
I think I would have slightly preferred that. I think that would be very interesting for Shooty's Doctor. If I'm completely honest, and I get this might have been mishandled through reshoots, I think you are getting into very dangerous territory, whatever you do with the idea of a baby that you have that is gone, and then you've got to make some form of decision on whether you bring it back. And because the problem is, whichever way you go, if you have that idea, you'll have people coming and saying, you're taking away a mother's child and you could go back and you're deciding not to. We've obviously had the stuff that has happened and people have got.
Mm.
I honestly, I think there was probably a mistake in bringing Poppy back or having that character just because I think it can be read into wrongly pretty much any way you go with it.
Yeah. It's definitely a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. And in that case, what do you expect the writer to do?
Mm,
If they're gonna be hounded for doing one thing and hounded for doing the opposite, I mean, yes, the justification could be, well, you don't bring them back at all. But there was
mm,
clearly a plan from. I mean, it depends how far. I won't mention it on the podcast, but it depends how far you want to read into the rumors of the supposed ending and what season three would have been, as to potentially see that get paid off. But I think I would have done the ending without Poppy.
mm,
I think I would have taken that hit of, you know, making it clear within the text somehow that Poppy is still out there. We just don't know where she is. And then you can do whatever you like with her. And when it ends with a doctor, you've got the opportunity to go back and to revisit them however you choose to do, whether you do at all. I mean, we've still not seen the doctor's daughter from
Yeah.
2008. So the door is always open for that thing. I think I would have handled the episode's reshoots with the hindsight of the being reshoots. I would have restructured it as best you can with the things that have already been set up.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the main things that I'll explain when I do my video is not seeing Omega. A lot of people saying Shooty should have woken up into the garden of 14. I'd
Mm.
have swapped that round. I genuinely thought in the background we were going to see Susan, and I thought that's where the conversation should have happened to
That's
give
what
that book ending.
I yeah, obviously there's rumors, obviously, we saw the fact that Caroline Ford was in, a second costume during her interviews. Was
Yeah,
there Susan material that was cut? I mean, it comes off this big thing. Obviously, you don't know, some of this is reshoot related and would it happen in the series 2 finale. Some of it is stuff that a potential Shooty Series 3 can deal with that won't feel the same. I mean, we've got Susan that feels so heavily tied to this Doctor. We've got Rogue that, wouldn't quite, maybe could come back, but I don't think would feel right without Shooty's Doctor. So that'll feel like a
yeah.
loose end. Are there any more that you feel like are a big miss, or any of those big misses to
Um,
you?
I mean, for me, I liked the scene between the Ranis in unit. I feel like Shooty does really well not being the last of the Time Lords. I think it's time to just embrace the fact that there are Time Lords out there.
Mm,
We should be getting an episode 3 or an episode 4 with just another Time Lord in it, and there's two Time Lords. They're not necessarily evil. Just you can do an awful lot with it, and I think it goes to show that the scenes with the Doctor and the Rani, not only in unit but on their own, work really well. Shooty's Doctor does really well with people of his own species, like with the Doctor's species. Not that we have much grounds on others because it is generally just the Doctor and the Master, but it felt like, I mean, in hindsight, you sort of go, where would you go for season 3 if you're bringing back Omega in season 2? I mean, would they have brought Tecteun back?
mm.
If you're dabbling with Susan, you've also got the Rani, you've got the Master. I mean, there's a lot of Time Lords, even some that he name dropped in Space Babies that we've never seen. The Conquisitor,
Yeah.
going on with them. You know, I think that's something that if we got a season 3 would be the route that I would expect it to go down myself.
What did you? Oh, because obviously, I had the best experience with this bit, and I bet in a cinema, especially because I don't think, or at least I didn't see a leak about this at all. How was it in cinemas with the glorious appearance of
Oh,
Jodie Whittaker's Doctor?
oh my god. It was gasps and cheers to the point where we couldn't hear an awful lot of that first 20 seconds of dialogue,
Yeah,
right up until the point Shooty said, "Oh, it's not the other guy, he's always turning up." And then there was laughter. I mean, it was so unexpected, but I think having, I mean, for however you take David Tennant being the 14th Doctor, having the incumbent Doctor with a previous one or the one beforehand felt really nice. It felt like a nice service for Jodie. It
mm,
felt like a really nice. I feel like them two really bounced off each other that I don't think others would.
hundred
There was
percent.
something really unique about seeing Jodie. I'm glad she didn't. I'm glad it wasn't with like David Tennant or anything like that because we had that in the giggle. And I'm glad whenever now that Jodie's finally got a multi-doctor scene under a belt, that it's not with David Tennant, considering
Mm,
how overshadowed her era felt with David Tennant material, with the video games, with the comics, with
mm.
everything. And it's as if she's never been away.
Yeah.
Considering she's become a mother and she's been going through that, she was, oh, that swagger that she's got in the first scene walking, you're like, yes. It's as
It,
if we've never been away.
it makes me obviously it's tough because Russell has said, in terms of, like the 60th and stuff, he doesn't like multi-doctor stories, so I'm not ever sure you could have gotten a more expanded version of it. But
Mm,
if Jodie wasn't pregnant and hadn't also just come away from the role, I really, again, wanky Doctor Who fan, maybe it's it seems it's 8 years away and we're talking about a 70th Doctor Who, there's a good chance the trolls will have killed it by then.
well,
But
yes.
my God, Jodie in a full-on multi-doctor as one of, I just think
Mm,
Jodie and multi-doctor, that lovely, bubbly, great energy that just like other doctors. I'm not saying this is specific to her doctor. Like other doctors, where their episodes sometimes, when their episodes fell short, Jodie's doctor just carried her episodes through and made some sometimes not great storytelling so watchable. And here in what was I think realistically about a 2 minute scene by the end,
yeah.
that has genuinely become. I think that will go down as an all timer Doctor Who scene. I
Mm.
think it was incredible.
Yeah, I think I don't agree with the people saying, "Oh, she's finally not written by Chris Chibnall, so her doctor's instantly better." She was
For a load
exactly
of
the
shit,
same
she's
as she
exactly the
was,
same.
and it's fully Jodie Whittaker that is carrying the 13th Doctor. You know,
Mm,
through them scenes to be able to see a more happy, smiley, like she was the materials written somber,
mm,
but to have her deliver it with a smile, and like she says to Shooty, don't be afraid, go with that great smile. You know, it's very Christopher Eccleston in that respect. I mean, Chris was the first Doctor I ever watched when it
mm.
came back. Um, I'm glad she got a multi Doctor, and I'm glad Shooty got one that wasn't piggybacking off. Oh, we've got David Tennant back. Yeah, well, you know, as good as it is, it's nice to see Shooty get that moment, and to get it with Jodie is a lot more special. I mean, going back to what you said about Russell not liking multi doctors, and perhaps if she wasn't piggybacking off, it should have been straight back. I think if Jodie and Capaldi had swapped, I genuinely think we would have seen Jodie in the 60th
Yeah, 100%.
instead of David Tennant.
Mm.
I think one thing, you know, we had that regenerating back into an old face and a new body. I mean, they could have potentially taken it a step further and have him just regenerate back or
Mm.
whatever.
Mm.
You know, I think, yeah, Jodie just brings so much warmth, and Shooty, you almost can't describe it, but
Mm.
when you're looking at it, it's nice. RTD2, nice.
100%. As we slowly, well, or a Zoom forces us to slowly wrap this up, do you have
Yes.
any final thoughts on Series 2 that you feel like we haven't covered in this whirlwind of an ep? Thank you so much.
It's all right. I mean, we haven't spoken about the final part of the reality war, but I
Mm.
think saving that for potentially the next part would be. I think Wishworld and the reality war put together is muddled. It's at times confused, but it's got some standout moments in it. It's got some fantastic performances in. Definitely one of Shooty's strongest performances.
Mm,
I would say Millie Gibson's knocking it out the park. I'd say um, Varada Sethu gives, for me, maybe joint second season performance for her. I'd say she also does really well in um, in the well. For me, her
mm.
performance is incredible. Um, yeah, it does. It does get a lot right. It gets more right than I think the Empire of Death does. I just think RTD drops the ball a bit more noticeably now in finales than he ever used to. I mean, I loved Journey's End when it came out, but in retrospective, a lot of people saying, "Oh, the Daleks were just sort of an afterthought," or a bit more. They were pushed to the side. Oh yeah, we've got to deal with them. They spin around and blow up. So it's never been the strongest point of dealing with the enemy. I think a lot more could have been improved. I mean, they say show don't tell, but I think less is more. And I think if Russell takes that on board, it's hard to tell. They were filmed back to back. There's no chance of sort of seeing how it's going to work and progress. I mean, you could argue he's been surrounded by yes men.
Yeah.
There's that infamous thing where them talking about the shot of 14 and Donna and 15 and Ruby outside of the TARDIS in the title sequence, and Stephen Moffat said shut it, whereas everyone else was saying, "Oh my god, put it in."
Mm.
We're not gonna ever know the behind the scenes politics of new series. I
100%.
think that's a classic season thing. But I think when the finale hits, it hits, but it drops the ball in places that stop it being more than good.
100%. Thank you so much for coming on. You're amazing. You viewers are amazing for dealing with my waffle. Please tell everyone loads about your channel, and I'm gonna whack it all the deets in the description.
Yes, well, less than a minute remaining. Here we
You
go.
got
So
this.
I make
Speed
I
pitch.
make edits about Doctor Who. I recently made an edit of the reality war. What if it was an open-ended regeneration? I'm potentially going to do one with Jodie Whittaker's scenes, doing Sega Nakanola's score. I'm going to be talking about how I would write the end of season 2, how I potentially would have handled all the threads. Um, Content's not regular. It comes out when it comes out. But I love this show and I'll talk about it until the day I finish.
Amazing. Well, please go subscribe to that channel, and hopefully I'd love to have you back at some
Oh,
point
I'd love to
as
be
another
back.
guest. It's been
Love
a
to
lot
be
of
back.
fun.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Zoom will murder this call in a second. So
100%.
thank you, thank them, a bush.
Bosh.